This is Words for the Soul, Food for the Heart, and I'm Jackie Wickware. This is the place where every word feeds your soul and strengthens your heart. Because believe me, there are times when we need a place that we can run into just to sit, sometimes just collapse, because the outside world has been a bit much for us. We need a place that is safe. And guess what? We found that place at Words for the Soul, Food for the Heart. So today, let me invite you to grab a cup of coffee, tea, some infused water, or maybe even your favorite throw. And just get ready to get a boost that you need for today. The other night, I was watching my favorite team, the University of Houston Cougars, go Cougs, play a fierce basketball game. And the reason I tell you this is because it is March Madness. And when you don't play the game anymore, you just watch it. And so I was watching this game with Houston, and we were in it. We were fighting, and then it happened. One of our key players made a power move to the basket. It was beautiful. It was strong, but just as he was about to finish the play, he landed on the foot of an opposing player. He crashed to the floor, and everything went silent. No one moved, not the fans, not the players, and not even the injured one. In what felt like an eternity, he suddenly grabbed his foot. No one knew what was coming next. Did he twist his ankle? Did he break his foot? Was he out for the rest of the season? I held my breath. And today, that's what we're talking about. Holding our breath. Let me ask you, can you relate to that? I bet you can. Because holding our breath has become all too common. In fact, the environment we've been living in has been a lot like that. People have been holding their breath, patiently waiting on word of whether they got the job following their latest interview, holding their breath, hoping their name is not on the latest list of job cuts. Some are holding their breath concerning whether they were approved for a loan. People are holding their breath, waiting on a good doctor's report. Some hold their breath to see if they passed that all-important exam. Holding our breath is more common than we care to admit. And yet, what are we to do with this? How do we navigate this reality? Especially when the game jumps up and bites us in the rear. When someone or something knocks the wind and the light out of us, and you can't even lift your head or open your eyes to see your way forward. How are we to deal with this reality? Well, the legendary R&B group Earth, Wind, and Fire exhorts us in this way by saying, keep your head to the sky. Can we talk about that today? Let's do it. A couple of people I know shared with me recently their story and their experiences about holding their breath, or better yet, gulping for air. Trying to stay alive, trying to stay in hope, trying to place their feet firmly on the ground after a life episode hit them in the gut. What do you do with something like that? We need to know. Because far too many people are dealing with this. Far too many people are grappling with this. And while we may not stop things from coming, what do we do when they show up? What would Jesus have us to do? See, because life doesn't stop to let us catch up. So what do we do? What does the word teach us? There are so many moments in scripture where people were holding their breath, facing uncertainty, danger, or moments when everything was on the line. Can I share a few examples with you? The Israelites at the Red Sea. Imagine the scene. They have just escaped Egypt, but now Pharaoh and his army are closing in behind them. And in front of them is an impassable sea. They had nowhere to go. They must have held their breath as they saw the dust rising from the chariots behind them. They must have held their breath when Moses stretched out his staff over the sea. And when the waters parted, they took that step forward, holding their breath, exhaling only when they reached the other side. And then there's Esther, who goes before the king. And Esther has to be literally holding her breath as she approached the king. See, because the law is clear. If the king didn't extend his golden scepter, she would be put to death. The fate of her people rested on this moment. And I imagine her pausing, whispering a prayer, and then stepping forward, holding her breath until the king welcomed her in. You know, the scripture says Jonah disobeyed God and ended up in the belly of a great fish, a whale. Can you imagine? No light, no air, no idea what's next. For 3 days and 3 nights he sat in darkness, praying probably, waiting, holding his breath, literally and spiritually, until God caused the fish to spit him out. The disciples were in the storm. And in Mark's gospel, it says Jesus was in the boat with them, but that didn't stop the storm from coming. The waves crashed, the wind roared, and the boat was about to sink. The disciples panicked, holding their breath, not knowing if they would survive. Meanwhile, Jesus was asleep, unbothered by the chaos. And then Jesus woke up, spoke to the storm, and everything was still. And then there's the woman with the issue of blood in Mark chapter 5. She had suffered for 12 years. Doctors had failed her. Money had run out. Hope was almost gone. But then she saw Jesus. I imagine her holding her breath as she reached out, believing that if she could just touch the hem of his garment, she would be healed. She touched him. And when Jesus turned, she was still holding her breath. And he said, "Daughter, your faith has healed you." She could finally breathe again. And then finally, there's Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane on the night before his crucifixion. Jesus prayed so intensely that his sweat became like drops of blood. He knew what was coming. He knew the pain he would endure. I imagine him holding his breath as he said, "Father, if you're willing, take this cup from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done." Each of these moments captures that feeling of not knowing what's next, of waiting in fear, uncertainty, or even desperation. Do any of these stories resonate with you? Which one do you think fits best with your episode? It matters. But here's the good news. God always shows up. Esther teaches us something about how to deal with those moments of fear, uncertainty, and waiting. And what she teaches us is when you're afraid to step forward, acknowledge the fear, but don't let it stop you. Esther knew the risk of approaching the king uninvited, but she didn't let fear paralyze her. Here's what she did. She gathered her community and she sought God in prayer and fasting. And she told Mordecai, her uncle, to gather the people to fast and to pray with her. So whatever you're dealing with, don't face fear alone. Get prayer warriors. Take the step, even when you don't know the outcome. Esther went to the king without knowing if he would accept her. Why? Because faith requires action. Some moments cause you to hold your breath or knocks the wind out of you. But even then, pray, seek support, and then step forward in faith. How did David deal with it? When you feel hunted or overwhelmed, cry out to God. David didn't hold in his fear. He talked to God about it. So remind yourself of what God has already done. Here's what he said. He said, I lay down and slept, yet I woke up in safety. He remembered that God was still watching over him. And can I tell you, God is still watching over you too. Just because something took you by surprise, just because something you didn't expect showed up and you didn't know what to do, it doesn't mean that God doesn't know what to do. It doesn't mean that God doesn't know how to put it back together for you. So one, choose to trust over terror. David said, I will not be afraid to trust God. How did Moses lead the Israelites through it? Because they were in an instance when they were feeling trapped. So when you feel trapped, here's what they did. They paused, but they didn't panic. Moses told the people, do not be afraid. Stand firm. Why? Because if you pull up your own history, God has already created a track record with you. You may have just forgotten the last time God brought you through. Remember what God has already done. The Israelites had just seen God bring them out of Egypt with plagues and miracles. They needed to remember. One, God's power. They needed to face forward. God told Moses, why are you crying out to me? Tell the people to move forward. Move, my brothers and sisters, even before the way is clear. The Red Sea didn't part before they stepped forward. It parted as they stepped forward. So again, pause. Remember God's faithfulness already to you. And that's reason enough for you to take a step forward in faith. Your knees may be wobbly, your hands might shake, but go on and move, because if you don't, you will stay right where you are. Go on and move. God is inviting you to come on, child, and let's do this thing together. The last thing I want to say to you is be open to divine surprises. God will show up in ways that you don't expect, even when something shows up that you didn't expect. So remember to just seek God for all of your answers. Be open to surprises. And when it breaks through for you, when your breakthrough comes, share your testimony. I want to look at what Jesus did finally there in Gethsemane. Jesus dealt with what was waiting for him, the thing he was dreading. But here's what he did. He didn't deal with it alone. I want to say to you, don't isolate yourself from support. Jesus went to pray, but he brought his disciples with him. And when you're praying, be honest to God about your struggle and everything else. Jesus prayed, Father, if you're willing, take this cup from me. It's okay to struggle with what God is asking you to do. Surrender, though, your will to God, even when it's hard. Yielding to God's calling and pulling you through what you don't want to go through will bring you help, hope, and peace. So receive the strength God provides. God sent an angel to strengthen Jesus. And what I want to say to you is help is always on the way. Pray, surrender fully, and trust God for strength to move forward. The woman with the issue of blood, she was desperate for a breakthrough, but she didn't give up. She decided to push past the obstacles, even if Jesus didn't answer her. She said to herself, if I just touch his clothes, I believe I'll be healed. She didn't need a big miracle, just a touch. Act on your faith. This sister reached out before she saw the result. Faith moves first, and then receive what it is that God gives us. Jesus told her, daughter, because you moved, your faith has healed you. Go in peace. She had to accept the healing and move forward. Listen, my brothers and my sisters, I need you to push. I need you to press, and I need you to push. So let me just take this final moment to pause here for a final takeaway. What do you do when you're holding your breath? Pause, but don't panic, because fear is real, but it doesn't have to control you. Acknowledge that you are afraid. There is no shame in that. Then be real and truthful with your own self first, and then tell God all about it in prayer. Remember what God has already done. Think back to your past victories. Remember where you've already been, what you've already faced, and the very things you have already overcome, and how God was in it all the way with you. Let that embolden you to know that you can do it again and that God will do it again. Ask God for what you want. Ask God for what you need. And then take a step forward in faith, even if you don't see the outcome yet. Surround yourself with faith-filled people. God has given you some faith-filled people who will support you and surround you in prayer, and you know who they are. Call upon them. You don't have to tell them everything, but you can elicit their prayers. Some of you have been holding your breath, waiting, worrying, wondering. Don't hold your breath in fear. Breathe in faith. And remember who it is that gave you breath in the first place. God. It was God who breathed life into you. It was God who woke you up this morning. It was God who kept you through danger seen and unseen. And it is God who will sustain you, strengthen you, and carry you through this moment. So don't just hold your breath in fear. Breathe in faith. I want to thank you for trusting me to share with you today on Words for the Soul, Food for the Heart. And I have been your host, Jackie Wickware. Don't forget to hit the follow and share button. And until next time, keep your head to the sky.